Using GZDoom to create entire games isn't unheard of, but there's still something unique about this dark, hellish take on the game that arguably catapulted the modding scene in the first place. It's a DOOMtroidvania take on a dead world. Can you stomach Vomitoreum? If you haven't heard me say, I saw this on the Alpha Beta Gamer Twitter account in a while, well, here you go. The video was in promotion of the Kickstarter, and I was interested enough to back the game at a fairly basic tier back in January. Lo and behold, I got a message stating the game was released just a few days back, so I gave it a few runs, and I found it rather enjoyable, if not fairly short and simple. Graphics are a mixed bag to get into, even if you know what to expect, because using GZDoom, expect the basic textured, simplistic 3D graphic environments, as well as 2D sprites that'll flatly rotate to face the camera, most often as the enemies and occasionally environmental object. Sprites in the game are also far more flat and cartoony than the detailed, colorful sprites that you would see in Doom, but with a direct influence from Polish painter. And apologies to any Polish speakers in the audience, because despite looking up several pronunciation guides, I'm probably going to slaughter this name. Polish painter Zdzisław Beksiński, who's known for creating disturbing paintings of twisted, foggy hellscapes, malformed skeletal humanoids, or some combination of the two. Both of the character designs and several environmental features are easily direct references to a few of his works. There is also a lot of very blatant nudity in some of these boss and monster designs, but the very crude details of the general graphic design might not make this super obvious right away, with the exception of obvious pixel nips. Music is quite fun and disturbing, which the title theme doesn't allude to right away. Headphone users in my stream chat remarked on how discordant the experience was in certain areas, taking advantage of 3D sound to create a disorienting scramble inside their heads. Many tracks are just attempting to make more of an atmosphere, using empty howling winds and low droning. As the bosses take slight inspiration from Souls-like games, most of the bosses have their own music themes, be they orchestral choirs, simple disturbing melodies, and in the case of the Concubath bosses, some hardcore guitar-heavy metal themes. It's better music than you would expect, and makes me wish I could find an OST instead of just playing through the gameplay with no sound effects so I could showcase the tracks when I could. While obvious Doom roots are in place, the game is structured more like Metroid Prime of all things. It's a massive area linked together by secret tiny tunnels and shortcuts abound. Many areas are gated off from you via lack of movement ability or item, so searching this environment for those upgrades is crucial. With the generally flat and drab look of the environments and textures, you'd think it'd be pretty easy to get completely lost. And while the Doom-style maps do make an appearance, I honestly didn't get lost too much in this game. After a couple hours of playtime, I would even immediately know where to go once I was trying to locate some of the hidden items. As flat as everything can be, it's somehow very memorable to me. The game might feel a little overwhelming at first, as you start with a basic pistol and little health. Most enemies will fire projectiles that can hit hard and take you down before you realize what even happened to you. And you'll find Estus Flask-style healing items that will refill its save masons. The ammunition for every weapon is completely unlimited, save for the exception of one weapon. Enemies don't respawn, so once you take them out, the world will only get emptier. Bosses are an interesting endeavor, some with rudimentary mechanics, even if the 90s-style shooter dominant strategy of circle strafing is enough to take out a healthy majority of them. The story is interesting enough to throw in twists and turns, starting out fairly vague about an otherworldly being coating the world in a plagued fog that mutated or wiped out most of humanity. As a living weapon created by one of the last remaining Masons, you're tasked with retrieving certain artifacts and taking out the infection at its source, even if that's not exactly how this all ends up playing out. It's an overall fairly short experience. My first playthrough was nearing under 3 hours when my save was reset when the version of the game upgraded. It took me far less time to get caught up back to it, where I found out the area I left off in was practically the end of the game anyway. There's special collectibles as well that'll unlock 2 secret weapons, with one being an absurdly overpowered boss melter despite its unremarkable look and impact, and the other being a BFG equivalent that consumes your self-heals with each blast. Some of these are hidden in some fiendishly tricky locations, so really think about scouring the map as much as you can if you're not going to rely on a guide to point them out for you. It's $10 to give the game a shot for yourself, which I feel is fairly priced. I've played through multiple times, with my personal attempt at a speedrun taking a near flat 40 minutes, when many I've looked up are usually in the 20 and 30 minute range. It's an easy go recommendation, unless you're not into this art style or the gameplay. Give it a shot if any of this seems of interest to you. Something about the game has me wanting to play it over and over. The map and environments are oddly memorable, and it's a fun enough experience for the price.